Hey, Tanya, can you hear me? Tiana, are you there? You're muted.
I know. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or afternoon.
Good afternoon. I think it's working okay.
Okay.
All right. Get that started for us. Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for Division 18 VA section, how to get a VA postdoctoral fellowship. It's my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, along with our esteemed panel, who you'll get to meet here in just a little bit. I wanted to just pop in here near the beginning and offer you a welcome on behalf of our VA section of Division 18. We're really lucky to be able to partner on this webinar with our VA Psychology Training Council, who's here to provide you a lot of great information on how to maneuver the VA postdoctoral fellowship process and what are some of the great benefits of being able to continue postdoctoral training at a VA site. I'm Dr. Villarreal. I'm based out of Denver, Colorado. I am currently the Deputy Chief of Mental Health for the VA system here in Colorado. So really a pleasure to be here. I'm also the chair-elect for the VA section of Division 18. I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Tyonna Adams, who is our early career psychology rep, and she's going to take it away and introduce her panelist, and we will go ahead and get started. This will be recorded and will also be available on our website a few days after we conclude the webinar. So just wanted to give you that information. That way, if there's information that you want to reference, you're going to be able to access the recording after the webinar as well. CEs are not being provided for this session, but I just wanted to remind folks about that as well. So Tyonna, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. And again, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Dr. Tyonna Adams. I'm a psychologist out of the Greater Los Angeles VA healthcare system. So honored to be here today and present this webinar. I'm going to go ahead and present our esteemed colleagues who are on this panel. So first we have Dr. Jamylah Jackson, who is chair-elect for the VA Psychology Training Council, co-chair of the VA Psychology Training Council's Multicultural and Diversity Committee, and director of psychology training at the Dallas VA. We next have Dr. Shiloh Jordan, who is chair of the VA Psychology Training Council and director of training for internship and residency at the VA Pacific Islands Healthcare System. Next, we have Dr. Zoe Proctor Webber, who's the secretary and treasurer for the VA Psychology Training Council, director of the predoctoral internship, and the director of training of the neuropsychology postdoctoral residency program at Bay Pines VA Medical Center. We also have Dr. Joel Schmidt, who is a past chair of the VA Psychology Training Council and now serves as the associate director of the Advanced Fellowship section of the VA Office of Academic Affiliations. Also, Dr. Wayne Siegel, who is a past chair of the VA Psychology Training Council and is director of training at the Minneapolis VA Medical Center. And last but not least, we have Dr. Amy Silberbogen, who is a past chair of the VA Psychology Training Council and director of training of the VA Boston Psychology Postdoctoral Fellowship Program. So welcome, everyone. We'll get started first with Dr. Jordan.
All right, thank you. I'm going to just provide an overview of understanding of postdoc training, and then we'll delve into more specifics related to the VA. But postdoctoral fellowships are intended to provide training in advanced skills that further the professional development and assist in launching the trajectory of the emerging psychologist. And previously, the postdoc may have been less uniquely defined and more focused on advancement of research or a focus on obtaining licensure, remediating concerns or needs not met on internship. And increasingly, the postdoctoral fellowship has evolved as the field moves to being increasingly specialized. So a main purpose of postdoc is to form an advanced skill set within the identified competencies of the postdoctoral program, which could include research, clinical, administrative skills, or a variety of combinations. So within a formal postdoc, there is priority placed on training and development versus productivity or revenue. And VA is the largest provider of training for psychologists in the country and one of the world's largest employers of psychologists. So training can further be a gateway to future employment and identifying employment opportunities that are a good fit for you as well. And so within our webinar today, we hope that we're creating an increased understanding of why a VA postdoc may be a potential great career opportunity and how you may also engage in the selections process, including identifying what might be a great fit for you as a candidate as well, and potential opportunities within VA. So we welcome questions throughout in the chat and also at the end as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Silberbogen.
Thank you, and hi everybody. I'm glad to be here with you today. In the next few minutes, I'm just going to speak a little bit about what makes training in the VA unique. Some really nice, considerations when thinking about your next steps and postdoctoral positions. And Dr. Jordan already alluded to this, but VA has a very strong commitment to education and training rather than to billable hours. So VA's long history of education and training is important to note. Education is one of the core pillars of the VA, along with research and clinical care. Within VA, and because of our unique funding, there can be a focus on training our next generation of psychologists. Provision of supervision is often seen, or most likely seen, as a benefit and privilege of employment rather than a collateral duty. Your experiences in VA will likely include opportunities to get skill in advanced evidence-based practice or measurement-based care. Science drives care and decision-making within VA, and there are a number of evidence-based psychotherapies within a diverse range of clinical presentations. So PTSD, substance use disorders, insomnia, depression, pain, motivational interviewing, couples work, among others. Tremendous resources have been devoted toward training and certifying providers and EVPs in order to make them widely available to veterans with mental and behavioral health conditions, including having a local EVP coordinator at each facility. So trainees benefit from this because they are being trained by certified providers, and based on local availability, may have opportunities to take trainings themselves. So this leaves graduates of our program really well prepared to treat diverse ranges of presentations and really relying on science. In addition to the EVPs, our trainees also have opportunities to have very diverse clinical training experiences in general, including interprofessional training. So within each VA is a wide range of available clinical experiences, including inpatient or outpatient training, touching every diagnostic category and co-located or embedded in primary care or medical specialty clinics. Along with this comes excellent opportunities for interprofessional training with providers from a broad range of disciplines. I like to also think about work at the VA as also being social justice and public service work. So training at VA provides students with the opportunity to work with an underserved population, as veterans typically do not have the economic resources or other resources to seek healthcare elsewhere. And we have the opportunity to provide care to individuals who risked their lives for our country. This is an opportunity to give back and engage in social justice and public service work, which can be incredibly rewarding. Within VA, you also have the opportunity to gain exposure to the multiple roles that a psychologist can fill. Psychologists within the VA are often engaged in multiple professional capacities, including clinical work, administrative efforts, research, leadership roles, supervision, and consultation. It's an opportunity for trainees to see psychologists work in these diverse roles and be exposed to these roles. Also, as Dr. Jordan referenced, it can be a pipeline for future VA employment. It is not a requirement to have prior training within VA in order to be selected as an intern, as a postdoc, or as an employee. And we have tremendous examples of these. And it's beneficial to have had that experience to really understand and be trained within VA. And the last point I wanted to make about some of the kind of unique attributes of VA training is that there's stable funding. Funding from internship and postdocs come from the Office of Academic Affiliations. It's written into the overall budget and assigned by location. Therefore, funding is stable from year to year with very few exceptions. And what this allows is consistency in training and a commitment to training within each facility and institution. I think that ends my section, and I believe I'm turning this over to Dr. Jackson. Or yes, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is having a fabulous day. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about diversity within the VA. One of the things that I think is a real strength of training within the VA is that there's a lot of diversity in not just the patient populations, but also in the types of experiences that you can have because it's such a large organization. Training directors and VA trainees have the benefit of shared resources with others that are doing similar work. Because we're a national organization, you're able to reach out to folks all over the country who are working in similar areas to request resources and all those kinds of cool things that really create wonderful opportunities for our training program leadership and even for our trainees if they're on those listservs. Multicultural training is one of VA psychology's largest priorities. We, as a national organization, trainees at VA really have great opportunities to interface with other trainees and staff all around the country. There are several initiatives that offer support and resources related to diversity in the VA. So there's a diversity listserv where staff and trainees can post questions, they can share resources. The nice thing about being in such a large organization is that if you're wondering if somebody has an article on a particular topic or working with a particular population, somebody does, I promise you, because the organization is just that big and just that rich with resources. So it's a great resource, and trainees are encouraged to be on that listserv if they're interested, as well as staff. There are also monthly diversity and inclusion forums, and these are more open venues where there's a loose topic, but it's really an opportunity for trainees and for staff to talk about how diversity issues are being addressed at their sites, whether it's specific to a training program or specific to clinical issues or other kinds of interactions. There are also quarterly diversity consultation calls. Those calls are more structured and typically will focus on a particular topic where there'll be a subject matter expert that presents on that topic and then takes questions toward the end of that. So lots of great resources and lots of opportunities for you to learn more about diversity and working with diverse populations, working within our system. And with that, I will turn it over to, let's see, who gets the ball on this one?
Dr. Proctor Webber.
Dr. Proctor, you look ready.
I'm ready.
I feel like emotionally where we're headed.
Can you hear me?
Yep, take it away.
All right, great. Well, I'm really excited to be here today to talk about VA postdocs. I am a product of VA training. I completed an internship and a 2-year neuropsych postdoc within VA and never left, found that it was a really good fit. I currently direct a postdoc, but I also work with interns. And I always ask them, what is your strategy for selecting a postdoc? How do you determine how many to apply to? Which ones to apply to? Well, I remind them that it's important to open your mind to all possibilities at the beginning of the process without ruling out any options too quickly. And then you can start to narrow down based on your personal and professional requirements. This is different than applying for internship or selecting practica. One of the things you have to determine is what is important to you. Geographic location? Are there restrictions? What about an area of specialization? And what about future? What are the employment opportunities or the retention rate of the facilities you're looking at? Well, I try to think of this as a Venn diagram. Where you live is one part, what you do is another, and what's the future going to look like for you? And as a guiding philosophy, you can choose one or two things to prioritize, but you need to be flexible in some of the other aspects to find the best possible fit. So choosing something that maybe is non-negotiable, whether it's geography or area of specialization, and then being more flexible in the other components, is going to lead to just a better postdoctoral experience. So in thinking about geography, many times there are geographic limitations such that you need to stay in the same city or at least reasonably close to where you are now or where you went to grad school. At this phase, are you ready to put down roots? Many of you have moved multiple times since college. You may have dragged your partners around with you or even been separated from them for a significant period of time, and you might be ready to settle down. Did you know that many postdocs remain in the same geographical location as their first job? And there's a really good reason for this. When you go on to postdoc, there's going to be this professional shift from student to junior colleague. And you're going to find yourself investing more of your time naturally into building relationships and networking, working with mentors who are going to provide you with strategies and opportunities for the next step, the permanent employment. In VA, the culture here is that this organization is invested in your training. They're investing time, resources, space, staff supervision, with this main goal of keeping you within the VA system. We don't want to lose you to the community sector. Training directors develop a VA psychologist pipeline, and the hiring officials are always thrilled to see these applications of VA trained postdocs for any of their positions. So sometimes prioritizing location, whether it's a specific city or a specific facility, can be really important to your future. And then what about specialty? Is it important to you to find programs or populations that are going to allow you to specialize in your field? Is this an area that you can be flexible on, or is this going to be your priority? One of the really neat things about working in the VA is a VA facility is one place where a psychologist often has the opportunity to change positions or change clinics where they're working, should something ideal open up later. So getting a foot in the door. So let's say you prioritize location or a facility, even if maybe the postdoctoral program isn't ideal. So maybe the program you're looking at is in the right city. You want to move to DC, but the training is in a general mental health clinic with substance abuse. And what you really wanted was rehab and recovery with SMI. Well, ask yourself, can you still practice and develop your specialization in this location? And generally, the answer is yes. Sometimes postdoctoral programs can be flexible. They might allow you to negotiate an experience that isn't offered clearly on the brochure. You might be able to arrange a small amount of your time on postdoc doing clinical work with a specific population or in a preferred clinic. And that can really result in significant job satisfaction. And other things to consider when you're looking at the range of sites to apply to. I would really want to know, does the postdoc program have a reputation for hiring their trainees? And is that important to you? Can you see yourself taking a job in that facility? Where do you see yourself living? This can impact where you seek licensure. One really neat aspect of VA culture that you might not be aware of is that you can be licensed in any state and any jurisdiction and work in a VA facility. So I work in the Bay Pines VA, which is in the state of Florida, but I don't have to be licensed in Florida. I could be licensed anywhere. And what this does is give me the flexibility of being able to move around facilities if, life circumstances redirect me at some point. And then another important aspect, when considering the range of programs to apply to, is think about what you enjoy most in your clinical work. Maybe it's the setting. Do you prefer inpatient or outpatient? Maybe it is connected to the population. Do you want to work with elderly or with females? It's important to listen to your gut, but check out all the options before dismissing a site or a program. Talk to the staff, definitely talk to the current postdocs, and consider your priorities, that Venn diagram, the location, the specialization, the future. And talk with your current mentors. If you're on internship, your supervisors, maybe they can see you at a program that you haven't considered yet. And I'll leave you with, the VA is a great place to complete your training and an even better place to start out a career. We have a wonderful mission. We're serving veterans. There is a value placed on training psychologists and creating an employment pipeline. There's competitive salaries and great benefits, even some education debt reduction, retirement plans. And you can even engage in private practice on the side. There are no non-compete restrictions. But best of all, because of that licensure piece, you can relocate with ease. You can transfer between facilities across state lines without seeking another license, which is going to give you freedom and promotes continual job satisfaction and even promotional opportunities down the line. That's all I've got.
All right, so I think I'm up next. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of fit. So really looking at application of postdoc and pursuing a postdoc is a different mindset than applying for internship. Because we don't have to do a postdoc, there can be increased attention and value placed on the importance of fit and how a site really matches with the next steps that we really want to take in our careers. And so we can more deeply reflect on what we really want out of and what we want to put into a postdoc, including self-reflecting on why you're pursuing a postdoc. And this will help guide the decision-making process. And so this can really include moving beyond thinking about such thoughts as, I just want to match so that I can finish my degree and have all this work actually pay off, which is really not an uncommon thought to have at internship, to really thinking about your learning goals for the next year and what would be meaningful. I really think about this as an opportunity to also engage in valuing yourself and listening to your internal voice versus just having to go through the motions of the next step to try to achieve the next goal as part of the marathon that a doctoral degree is, but really to self-reflect on what is a meaningful next step as well. And so encourage increasingly reflecting on why you're interested in a program and how the program values align with you. So this can include the learning experience that are available as well as the culture of the program. And in many ways, I think the postdoc selections process itself is a more intimate engagement than internship, just because the volume of applicants tends to be different than on internship, and the way that I think that you can get to know a site and a site can get to know you just looks different at the postdoc level. And so in demonstrating goodness of fit, the cover letter is a great opportunity, a great place to identify why you're interested in the program and what makes you a good fit for the program. And I think really gives you the opportunity to have your CV take on meaning beyond your stated experience. When I think of that cover letter, it's a nice piece for not a regurgitation of what's on your CV stated in paragraph form, but really like, why do these experiences come together for making a meaningful step in this direction and how your program aligns with my professional interests and values as well. And it's a really great opportunity to also, as I've kind of reflect on my own cover letter writing, of like, if I can't answer the question of why I'm interested in a program, that should give me a pause. Not just that my cover letter won't be as strong, but really what is this about? Why am I pursuing applying to this program? So if your reasons for applying to the site are not necessarily about the program or the program's values, it could make the cover letter less powerful, but also potentially be a flag for you to consider, is this the best fit for me as well? And when I think about, I'm geographically located in Hawaii. So stating just, it seems like a nice place to move to is not really as compelling of a reason versus if you really have an interest in serving the community in which the postdoc is located and have a sense of connection to the community and a value for who you'll be serving in the community. That is a different level of meaning just for the understanding of the site, but also in your own self-reflection of what it means to be located in that area. And is it really just about geographic region, or is it really about this site and the people I'll get to serve within that site as well? And so really thinking about those aspects when you're approaching writing the cover letter, which is a common requirement of the application process, you can really use it as that self-reflective goodness of fit tool, and really being thoughtful about the application process and also the sites that you're applying to as well. And really thinking less about applying to the masses in the hopes that you match so you can take the next step in your doctoral degree, but having a different intentionality as well can really serve you well in finding the next place that you're going to invest a year of your life and professional development in, and also that site's going to invest in you as well at a advanced level, at a different level than that moves beyond the internship experience as well. And with that, I believe I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Schmidt.
All right, thank you. So I've got that tough spot between Dr. Jordan and Dr. Siegel, but I'll do my best to hold up my end of the deal. So it's great to be here. As was mentioned at the beginning, I'm the Associate Director of Advanced Fellowships in OAA, and this gives me a good opportunity to talk about some fellowships that may be off the beaten path, but certainly worth considering. So our section of OAA, we are responsible for some programs that really have specialized training that might, in some cases, be really applicable for your professional goals. So we have basically two categories. One is specialized clinical training in areas of importance to VA, such as addiction, psychosocial rehab, women's health, TBI, et cetera. Or the other broad category is health services research, quality improvement, data science, patient safety. In other words, specialized skills that you can use for kind of becoming a leader of some sort in an organization like this. We have about 21 programs. We have 21 different programs in about 50 different facilities across the country. And it's important to note that originally these were designed for physicians, but have become interprofessional. The reason that's important is because, and this goes back to my statement about being off the beaten path, in order to find us, it's a little bit harder because we're not necessarily on the grid in the way all the other psychology training programs are. So I'm trying to make a pitch for you to take that extra effort and find us, because we got some pretty great programs. So some of our programs are 1 year and some of them are 2 year. Most of the 2-year programs are 2 years because they've emphasized research training, and typically it takes a few years to build your portfolio in terms of publications, grant writing, et cetera. It gives the people a little bit more time to do that. And for those of you that are considering a research career, you're probably thinking about academic medical centers outside the VA. And let me make a pitch for the VA. One of the things that we have that nobody else has is the biggest healthcare system in America and the most complicated healthcare system in America. And there's a real trend, I think, in research education is to make sure that we embed developing researchers in healthcare systems, because we can imagine the scenario where you do this great research, you get it published, and that's very exciting, except that nothing ever happens with that research. And so there's really a push to put the researchers in the healthcare systems, in clinical teams with leadership groups, so that there's actually this feedback between what can happen, what is needed, and the actual research itself. And so I don't imagine there's a lot of places that could match the VA in terms of being integrated into a healthcare system in that particular way. So our biggest fellowship is the Mental Illness Research and Treatment Advanced Fellowship, also known as the MIRIC, which is kind of a related term, but it's the same program. We have 28 sites across the country. And typically in this fellowship, you're going to do about 75% research training and 25% clinical work. And it's really a nice integration of those two things. So for people that want to go in a research direction, but still want to maintain some clinical expertise, it's a really good choice. And also, and I should say this, it's one of the, so many of our fellowships will also take you down the road of licensure, which is important. Most of them can, some of them can't. So again, that's one of those questions to make sure that you understand as you go along. So that one's our biggest. The other ones that are very popular for psychology trainees are health services research, women's health, advanced geriatrics, psychosocial rehabilitation, and addiction treatment. Those are some of our biggest ones for psychology. Let me just mention psychosocial rehabilitation for a second. So this is it's a one-year clinical program to really work within the recovery model in an interprofessional training setting. And the goal is really to develop clinician leaders in this particular area. And they've really been wildly successful. I mean, it's been talked earlier about this pipeline to a job. Well, these people just get snapped up as quickly as possible into the VA. So it really is a pipeline. In fact, if anything, we have to kind of fight them off to let people finish their fellowships before they get hired. So, and I think we have a really good track record of all of these fellowships, people going into the VA, but that's kind of a specific example. I guess one other one I'll mention that's really kind of up and coming for psychology is the VA Quality Scholars Program. So it's another one that really is bringing in more and more psychologists, which is exciting. Because again, these all started as physician trainings, and then they brought in nurses, and then they brought in other professions. And of course, psychology is becoming, one of the biggest professions within these fellowships, which as a psychologist, it's very exciting for me to see. So I hope you'll give us a look if any of those areas are of interest to you. And so how do you do that? Well, again, it's a little tricky. I'll put our website into the chat after I'm done talking. So it's a lot, it's a little more involved. Not all of our programs on the UPPD, which Wayne's going to talk about soon. Some are, some aren't. And again, that's because a lot of them don't really come at this from a psychology recruitment perspective, although I'm trying to help them along in that regard. But if you take a look at our website, which also the timing is unfortunate, we're upgrading our website, which is great, but it's not done yet. And so some of this, if you search by both program and location, you'll see where our fellowships are located. And everyone will give you some contact information. Some will take you to the website for the program. Others won't yet. We're working on that. But hopefully for most of the big ones, you can. So that's one way to do it. But generally speaking, it is important to reach out to the program directors and make that direct contact. Again, that's just something that's a little bit different about our fellowships compared to how you will look for the other psychology postdocs, which again, Dr. Siegel will talk about. Let me see, anything else I wanted to mention? Yeah, I think those are kind of the main points. Oh, and if you are in the VA now, and because we have some more information on our SharePoint site, which you can get to if you're in the VA, but not if you're not. So again, I'll put that in the chat as well. Again, I think we have some really great training programs available that you won't necessarily run into if you don't look intentionally. So I'm just making the pitch for you to do that because I think we have some really great programs. And I'll be available at the end for questions. And also, if you have any other questions and you're not getting them answered otherwise, you can send me an email and I can make sure that you get the information that you need. And with that, I'm going to pass on to Dr. Siegel.
Well, unfortunately, Wayne Siegel had an unexpected conflict, so he asked me to fill the ending slot and talk a little bit about the UPPD and selection processes and how this whole postdoc experience is different than internship. So I'm going to just spend a few minutes reviewing some of those issues with all of you today. So as you've probably picked up from hearing all of us speak today, there's so many different types of postdoc experiences. There's one-year clinical postdocs, there's the 2-year neuropsychology postdocs, there are OAA advanced fellowships, there's research postdocs, there's just so many different options. On the side, we kind of call it the Wild West. It's just not a well-formed community like it is for internship training. And that's really because it's a choice. You don't have to do a postdoc where you do need to do an internship. So a few years ago, actually back in 2016, a number of leaders in education and training got together for a postdoctoral training summit. And one of the main things that came out of that summit was to have one place for applicants to search for all programs. And these would be programs that are APIC member programs, who aren't APIC member programs, private practice type experiences, clinical fellowship, neuropsychology fellowships. The idea was that it could include, be a directory to include everybody. And that's called the Universal Psychology Postdoctoral Directory, or UPPD. And that's something that Joel referenced just a few minutes ago as well. Currently, I think there's over 1,400 programs listed in the UPPD. And it's a great source to start identifying kind of what type of postdoc experience would be a good fit for you. One thing to keep in mind is that there's no, like in the APIC member directory, you have to meet a certain type of criteria to get listed. For the UPPD, the criteria is you're offering a post-internship experience. It may be a training program and it may not be. So we really ask the users to be reviewing those listings with that in mind. So for people interested in a postdoc, the #1 stop is really looking at the UPPD. There's lots of great search criteria in there, and creating a listing of the types of programs that are of interest to you. You also may rely on your professional organizations for your specialty practice areas to get a sense of other positions that may not be listed in the UPPD. As Dr. Schmidt said, not every opportunity, particularly those that may be more research-based, are listed in the UPPD. Typically, listings in the UPPD also provide a link to training brochures, so you can go hop right over there and read more about the experiences, and then how to go about applying for those experiences. The UPPD is also continuously updated and listed. Their listings are continuously updating, so you may go in there and see that new things kind of pop up just because everybody's kind of learning about it still. It's a way better source of information than it was 2, 3, or 4 years ago. But there's still kind of ongoing engagement from the APIC postdoctoral committee in trying to get people to update their listings. So go there, learn about different positions, and then you start applying. there's different ways to apply for postdocs. So this is not, again, the same as internship. It is not a well-worn path. Many different, thank you for putting that in. Many positions will use the Applicants. So this is a product developed by Liaison. It's a structured application platform with kind of key components that many programs will use. So CV, cover letter, 3 letters of reference. Many programs will use the Applicants, but many programs will not. So again, this is where you want to refer to your program brochures that you're interested in to learn, how the programs that you're interested in are accepting applications. I think larger programs and well-established programs may be more likely to use the Applicants versus kind of smaller programs or research programs or kind of places that are kind of just getting up off the ground. It's a pretty easy platform to use. And I would just like to say that it is not like the Appy. There's no counting of hours. It is a lot easier to fill out the Applicants than it is the Appy, if all of you are having kind of, flashbacks from that experience. And then I just want to spend a few minutes and then I'll wrap up because we want time for questions talking about the unified notification date. It is a relief. The other thing you all should know is that it is a total buyer's market out there. So there are way more postdoc positions and experiences and opportunities than there are applicants, which means that all of you will do just fine in applying for postdoc. So keep that in mind. I think it's a really important thing to remember. The APIC Training Summit also has worked with the postdoctoral committee to develop some guidelines for maneuvering through selection processes. And those are available on the APIC website. And I'm happy to put some of those links into our chat and some other resources that APIC has developed. But in short, all VA clinical programs cannot make offers until the unified notification date, which is February 22nd, 2022, 2/22/22. Pretty clever, I think. It's a Tuesday this year because Monday is a holiday, I believe. So all offers will go out that morning. Now, if you're somebody who has multiple interests and you're applying to some clinical positions and maybe one of Dr. Schmidt's advanced fellowship positions, and one of his positions make you an offer ahead of time, but the clinical position is still your first choice, you're not stuck. You can then do what's called request a reciprocal offer, and you can go to your #1 choice and request an offer in advance of that February 22nd date. It all sounds very confusing. I guarantee you it is not when you're living it. And really encourage you to turn to any of us, to your training directors, to get more information on how to navigate the UND, particularly if you are someone who has kind of multiple interests and or applying to different types of positions. Neuropsychology positions also don't follow the UND. Some neuropsychology positions will engage in the apps and match, but others will not. So as I'm talking, it is still a Wild West out there, but it is a controlled Wild West, and you have a lot of resources to help you. So I'm going to stop talking now and pop some links into the chat that might be helpful for you as you navigate over the next few weeks. And I'll turn it back to you, Shiloh.
All right, and I think we can go through and look at some of the Q&A, and we will circle back to that neuropsych question that was asked earlier as well. So looking at how does it work on UND, so being in Hawaii, it is whatever is stated as the start date. Well, I think it's 10 a.m. That means 5 a.m. for me. I'm there making calls at 5 a.m. So really, regardless of where you are, it's the time that's stated. And so when a site says they adhere to UND, that means that stated start date, regardless of where we are geographically. So I tell my current interns that are applying for postdoc to expect that sites will start calling at 5 a.m. Hawaii time. And good thing it's a phone call, so you don't have to be video ready as well. So I think that answers that question there. And then if we just look at clarifying sites brochures that are going to be on Applicants, I think I ran into an issue where I really appreciated an applicant reaching out because I thought my applicant portal was open and I had misclicked one year. So if the site says that they are accepting applications in that manner and you can't find them in the system, I think it's okay to reach out to the training director to clarify, because that was really helpful when that applicant did, because I didn't realize that it wasn't open, because sometimes the system has updates and I had thought I did it well and I clearly didn't as well. So I think that's an appropriate thing to reach out to the training director to clarify if you're not seeing it in the application system, especially as we're in November and the portal's going live and deadlines, application deadlines are approaching as well. Amy, do you mind answering or if others have things to add with that, please feel free. I know that Amy may be able to answer the parental leave the most thoroughly.
Sure. How does the VA typically handle postdocs who end up needing parental leave? Does it make a difference if you've done your internship in VA as well? So I think within VA, FMLA is not allowed for trainees. It's actually new for staff within the past, I think, 2 or 3 years. And so typically the way trainees who need parental leave or have another medical issue is to work very closely with their training director to use their sick leave and annual leave, and to work closely to gain competency in the areas necessary for their development over the course of the year. I think VAs are motivated, and training directors are motivated to work with you. I can tell you in my program, I feel like I should have like a collection of all the babies that have been born in my program throughout the years, and see where they all head up and go, lead to. But it often just means, working closely to really track your hours. We now have, at least at my site, we are now able to authorize advanced leave, which means within VA, you accrue 4 hours of annual leave and sick leave over the course of the training year. And we can get all that leave for trainees who need that medical leave in advance. Does it make a difference if you've done your internship in VA? Well, it may mean that you have more hours of leave. The tricky piece of that is that you're still required to meet a minimum level of hours for completion of program. And if you use the leave that you may have brought over from internship, you may not be able to meet all the hours that are required for postdoc. Again, each situation is kind of really unique and different and requires close collaboration. And so I encourage people who have a medical issue, a good one, like having a baby, or a challenging one, to work closely with their training directors as soon as possible.
And Amy, if I could just add something too, I can say that from the Office of Academic Affiliations, there's a lot of support. I mean, again, this happens all the time, all over the country. And there's definitely a lot of support for people having lives, personal lives as well as training. And so one of the things that will happen sometimes, as Amy said, you have to meet your hours that are required. But it's pretty easy from our end to transfer funds from, so sometimes people will have to take leave because they're having, parental leave, and then have to extend their fellowship. But that's not a big deal. That's pretty easy for us to manage. So that's one way that it happens quite frequently, is people will take the time they need, and then we'll extend on to the end of their fellowship to meet the time requirements.
Thanks for raising that, Joel. It's such a good point.
Zoe, do you want to jump in and answer about some of the neuropsych questions? I think there's a rolling admissions date one, and there also was a question earlier about neuropsych versus clinical.
All right, you're going to have to read them to me.
Okay. For neuropsych sites with rolling admission dates, what would be the recommendation for when applicants should submit an application relative to other applications due next month?
Well, that's a good question. Okay, so neuropsych programs that have rolling admissions. I think part of that decision will have to do with what your end game is. You know, if this is a program that you're prioritizing, then I would recommend sooner than later. Amy sort of referenced some of the Wild West problems we have with neuropsychology in particular, because we have some programs that are in the absent match, which is very much like the internship match. It's on a very specific day. There's no early reciprocal offers to be made, generally speaking. And then there are some that make their offers very, very early, and it can be really challenging for applicants and candidates to be offered maybe a position in a rolling program that is going to benefit from making offers earlier than the match date. And for the same candidate who's maybe first or second choice is a program that's in the match and has to adhere to the match. So what I recommend to my neuropsych tract interns is, when you're making your selections, you know, when you're thinking of that Venn diagram and where you want to be, and with neuropsychology, specialization is often one of the prioritized parts of that, is to make a list of your top choices and stick to it, because when you get an early offer from a site lower on your list, it can really create chaos and mind games on the part of the intern, in terms of you know, taking the bird in hand and not wanting to risk another national match. But you know, if it's your number one spot, apply early and be ready to accept an offer, even if it comes before the match. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and can you also speak a little bit to the difference between neuropsych and clinical, neuropsych specific and more clinical postdocs?
Sure. So a neuropsychology specialty program generally is adhering to Houston guidelines, which specifies a length of 2 years. And many of these programs are designed and developed to promote board certification or eligibility. We have some sort of standardized aspects to our training that we adhere to, what we expect. For general programs, you can certainly get training and assessment, and I would hope that you would. And you can certainly get training in neuropsychology. But if your end game is to become board eligible, or even secure a job that requires board eligibility or board certification, you're going to want to look for a postdoc that adheres to the Houston guidelines. There are other directories outside of the UPPD that can help you navigate this. APPCN, that's APPCN, has their own membership of programs that really promote training that will make you eligible for board certification. Division 40 has a list of programs that really specialize in neuropsychology. So if that is what you are hoping to do as a career, really specialize in this field, then you would probably want to seek out those 2-year experiences versus a more generalized 1-year postdoc, you know, that gives you some exposure to neuropsychology and assessment.
Hey, thank you, Zoe. Are there other questions that we missed? I see one just popped in. Can you still request reciprocal offer if you receive an offer in 2 different subfields? I get an offer from a geropsychology position and request an offer from a 2-year neuropsychology program. So Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing to say specifically what type of program it really is. It's just that if you're going to request a reciprocal offer, you can put on hold and ask for a reciprocal offer. There's nothing about what type of program you're asking the reciprocal offer from.
That's correct. If you receive an early offer, you will want to have some documentation of that offer, so that way you can provide that to the site that you're asking the reciprocal offer from, if that makes sense. I'm trying to post some links into the chat, which I apparently posted only for our panelists. So I am going to try to figure out how to maneuver them over to.
Amy, I think I might have just done it.
Oh, you did? Thank you.
I hope so, yeah.
I just kept sending things out there in the world and only to people who already know.
All right, so we're about 5 minutes to the hour. I think there are about 2 more questions in the Q&A section. Okay.
Telework only postdocs. Oh, how exciting. I have not heard of that. Joel, I don't know if from OA
Well, so I think it says telework only jobs, not postdocs.
No, yeah.
Is it?
The question is, have you heard of any telework?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. The short answer is no, and I don't really expect to see that in VA. There's a lot of reasons why that doesn't seem like a really great training model. So there's some jobs that might be telework 100%, but there's a pretty strong belief, I think, that a significant part of training should be in person for mentorship, for professional development, et cetera. So I don't anticipate we will see that in VA.
All right, and there was a question about asking about rolling admissions. Usually with the advanced fellowships, sometimes there might be rolling admissions because they're not on the strict timeline that the clinical fellowships tend to be on. Otherwise, if there's a deadline that's noted, then I would go with the deadline. If it's unclear, then it's totally fine to email the TD to ask if it's rolling admissions or if it's a mistake that the deadline wasn't posted.
Yeah, just along those lines, I mean, I think one of the take-home messages is that this is a different world than internship. Internship, everything is very regimented. Some things in postdocs are very regimented, some are less so. So it really is important, I think, to reach out to the specific program, ask these specific questions, and don't assume that just because another program's doing something that everybody's going to do the same thing.
And that last question's about a VA job versus a VA fellowship. One of the things, the main thing I would say here as a distinction is that the priorities for a job are very different than the priorities for a fellowship. For the fellowship, the priority is training and you're learning, and there'll be didactic series and cohort development and all kinds of things that are really focused on being a part of a training program and preparing for the next step. Whereas for a job, the focus is productivity. It's being a valued member of whatever the team is, seeing whatever patients are within the clinical area. You'll receive the supervision that's required if you don't have a license, if you're in a VA position, but the focus is not going to be training. The focus is going to be productivity. So if you're ready to be a productive citizen, absolutely go all in and do a job. If you're wanting to get more experience and training and learn more about a particular population or clinical group, then a postdoc might make more sense.
Okay, well, thank you all. Any last minute questions? We're right at 12:58. Okay, looks like they're all answered. But thank you all for joining us today and for all of our colleagues. Great discussion, and there were a lot of great suggestions shared. All right. Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.